you everyone for coming. As Tracy mentioned, my name is Todd, and I've been at Network Center for about 10 years. Originally was an engineer, and then I've slowly transitioned into more of a director role and overseeing products and things of that nature. And Mike is actually on our support team, and Mike, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, Mike Lehmberg. I've been with Network Center a little over a year. My technology career started in 1999 in the Air Force as a satellite communications journeyman. I transmit and receive voice, data, video, and also I'm in the Army National Guard. A little over a year now being in 25 Delta Cyber Network Defender.
And so the Cyber Network Defender, Mike, that's something I just read in the paper today, that Ohio is actually leveraging their Cyber Defender team for the voting there. So that's the Cyber Defenders, that's what he does in the Guard when he's not working at Network Center. It's a pretty cool thing. So the cyber threat landscape today and tomorrow, there's some quotes on here that I wanted up right away, and I know there's a lot of words, but the points I want to take home is that small business may feel that they aren't likely to be a target due to their size, and that hackers couldn't possibly be interested in what they do. But in reality, the exact opposite is true. Small business typically doesn't have the resources that large enterprise business have to protect themselves. So keep that in mind as we go forward.
And then also Yahoo. That today was actually the largest cyber event as of now. It impacted about 500 million users, the largest hack to date. It's believed to be state-sponsored. Really no information quite yet that's come out about that. But it involved names, email, phone, date of birth, hash password, security, questions, stuff like that.
And Mike, so for the people who don't know on hash passwords, what is that?
Hash password, let's say you take your regular password and they use an algorithm to come up with a long string of digits. So it doesn't look like your password, but it's essentially it. It's just an algorithm that's been used to.
But there are ways to reverse engineer it, which
Correct.
means if you're using that same password across multiple accounts, bad things happen.
Yep.
The final one here, the DDoS attack that happened just a few weeks ago, and as Brett had alluded to in his presentation earlier, I mean, this particular attack involved over 100,000 malicious endpoints. They were all infected with the Mirai botnet, which more or less is a virus that was implanted onto DVRs, and through the command and control services that these botnet things do, they were able to direct 1.2 terabytes of data at the DNS servers, which essentially took down a lot of services across the web. Now, what's scary about that is they were saying that that was more or less a training session. That wasn't what they could do. So think about that for a minute. If they could take off that many websites, Netflix was a huge one, several others, and it's scary. Now, the bottom point that we have on the slide is something to note on this is it's been identified that there already is a reverse hack for the Mirai botnet, meaning that the good hackers could then hack the bad hackers and crash those systems. So that helps us anyway. All of those hacked.
So who are they? Well, really, it comes up to four different kind of groupings. You have your individuals, which are your professionals. These are the guys who've been doing this forever. They understand the inner workings of it all. They are professionals in every aspect of hacking. And then you got your script kiddies. Now, these are your individuals who they don't understand anything about hacking other than I can go and pull out something online, run it, and then have it do its thing, and then I can pull whatever information. They don't understand what's going on in the background. They're just pulling things off the internet and running it.
So like a high school kid, maybe bored
Exactly.
and just finds a program,
Yep.
hey, I can run this, and great, let's do some stuff.
Yeah, look at me, I'm cool. I just ended up, doing this and that. And then you got your cyber gangs. Now, cyber gangs, we look at all these movies of, them, pulling over a semi and guy gives them the truck full of cigarettes and then they're on the street corner selling them. They still exist today, and they actually exist in the cyber realm. They've transitioned from that to cyber. And so they have the hierarchy. They're between 10 and 40 individuals, and they function like a regular business. They do offer services. I mean, they're still there. It's just that the business has changed. Then you got your hacktivists. We've all heard of Anonymous. These guys are basically irritated with something, and so what they do is they take all their cronies and they go after something in retribution. And so Flint, Michigan, the lead in the water incident. Anonymous actually was in that pretty well. Not a lot was said about it, but they were attacking the city's websites, stuff like that. And so that's really the third grouping. And obviously it involves Anonymous, Lizard Squad, the Level 7 crew, Chaos Computer Club, LulzSec, you might have heard those guys as well. Syrian Electronic Army, Global Hell Network Crack Program, hacker group. And then obviously you have your fourth, which is your nation states.
And it's unfortunate that you likely don't have the money stashed away to be able to survive some kind of real large event. Government, local, state, and federal, they're all targets to some extent. And then critical infrastructure. And I believe there's 16 different areas deemed critical infrastructure. And here I just laid out 5 for you. Power's a big one. I know we have a power company represented today, or a couple of them rather, here today. Gas, dams, that's important. There was a dam in upstate New York a couple years ago that was actually broken into, and they had the ability to do some really nasty things there. Defense, the military, state secrets, things of that nature, and then agriculture. It's critical because if we aren't able to feed our people, bad things happen. If we aren't able to have power, bad things happen. Gas, dams, all of that stuff. Really bad things happen. People will die, lives will be lost.
So why are they doing this? A lot of different reasons. One is financial. So they're looking for your credit card numbers. They're looking for your account numbers for your bank account. Kind of makes sense. It goes with that first group, the cyber criminals. And then the other ones is steal information. That's intellectual property, personal information, your date of birth, your social security number, stuff like that. And then the third one is your bragging rights. You know, where it used to be who can put the most graffiti on the side of a train just for fun. Now they're doing this kind of stuff in an online environment. It's really what it comes down to.
Websites, yeah. And if anyone hasn't had the chance to read the Verizon data breach report, that's free and available to you online. Go ahead and Google that. It's a really great resource and gives you a lot of information. Let's talk about some of the methodologies and tactics. Here we've got phishing. That's probably one of the biggest ones, and you hear tons about it right now, but it's unfortunate that this is probably the biggest means that you are being compromised or your end users are being compromised. Here's an example of a layout of a possible phishing message. At the top you can see the from line. You know, it's usually a similar address. It might be the actual address of someone that you know, but in reality it's not. In the from line down in the body, it's actually got a link there. It says, click here to view phone number. Well, that could be a link that essentially you click on and now you've just been compromised. The to field, if it's a targeted phishing attack, there's a good chance that your actual information is going to be in there. And at the bottom there it says, to read transcription of this message, click here. You'd be surprised how many people actually click here.
An avatar would be basically like a picture. So you know, you'd have your username, but there'd be a little avatar next to it. And so this company's website allowed you to upload your avatar to it, and then you would be able to have that under your profile. Well, what they found is the majority of the people are actually putting in the avatar picture fine. But then there are some people that actually were injecting SQL script into that website, and we're actually pulling people's username and passwords and other sorts of information. It's a totally legit way of doing it, and if the website's susceptible to that, they will be able to pull information.
Zero-day attacks, and these are attacks that are pretty scary. And I've got a little diagram here, kind of the life cycle of a zero-day vulnerability, and it starts out with the vulnerability being discovered by someone, and that can be a researcher, or it could also be a bad actor, you know, a hacker, if you will. You can see I've got what we call the window of opportunity throughout this entire thing, and that's the opportunity or opportunistic time that the hacker has to be able to take that vulnerability and exploit it. So once it's disclosed to the manufacturer or into the wild, there's that period of time that the vendor has to then go and develop a patch to fix that. And then once they release it to the wild, there's also some time overlap in which people actually apply that patch. So these are real. They're happening all the time, unfortunately, more and more now as we learn more about some of the NSA information that's been leaked out. There are way more of them than we thought there were.
So a distributed denial of service attack, as you can see in that picture, there's a whole lot of endpoints hitting single individual points. That basically will shut things down. This is all done through a lot of different bots, basically, run by one person, the command and control environment. All right, hit this target. And it's used for a lot of different reasons. You know, extortion. Hey, you pay up, otherwise I'm keeping this going and you're not going to have a website until I say
it'll take you down until it's done.
Exactly. Turf wars. You got a bunch of cyber games trying to, you know, basically have a normal turf war, but on a cyber environment. Anti-competitive businesses doing things against one another. punishment, anonymous, attacking in Flint, Michigan's website. Training. This would be kind of like, well, we're going to do something more extreme in the future, but we're just trying to get our processes down. We're trying to actually perfect what we're doing.
The salesperson probably doesn't need access to a server room. So let's restrict that. Let's put things in place to remove their capabilities to move to certain sensitive areas within the organization. We've got firewalls, IPS, IDS, these kind of network edge devices that help A, prevent something from coming through, and then B, detecting something if it does come through. Logical access control. Let's start locking files down, folder shares, things of that nature. Not everybody in the organization always needs access to all of the data. Restrict it. AV software, and we categorize that anti-malware, antivirus, application whitelisting. Implement those things. They are there. They will help you. Patch management, I think, is one of those things that always gets put to the side. And unfortunately, that is a very, very big thing, and it needs to be addressed. Both from, if you're a Windows environment, your Windows patches, and then also all of your third-party patches. And then finally, device configuration. Let's start taking a look at those routers and firewalls and making sure that the configurations that we have on those are still accurate today. Do we still need this port open on our firewall? Is this server hardened the way it should be? Do I have services running that I don't need? You need to take a look at those things and make sure that you're in a very good security posture.
So obviously, patch. Your operating systems, when they come out with those patches for vulnerabilities, you need to get that all updated. And that doesn't go just for operating system. It's their third-party patching as well, Adobe, Java, stuff like that. Antivirus, make sure it's reputable. Don't be going for anything just because it's cheaper or whatnot. Application whitelisting. Web filtering. You're not going to stop anybody from getting to anything bad, but at least you can help mitigate that. So web filtering will keep majority of people out of the bad websites that might infect their systems. Email filtering, same exact thing. You're not going to stop 100%, but if you can mitigate it, it's better to do so. And then you have obviously your encryption of critical files. Again, goes back to the governments. Department of Veterans Affairs. 6 years ago, I got a letter saying, hey, guy left a laptop in his car. You, along with millions of other veterans, have gotten their information stolen. So I got a double whammy. So basically, the guy didn't have any encryption on the drive. So anybody could just take it, just undock the drive, pop it in an external hard drive dock, and drag all this information off. So encrypting your critical files is pretty critical, in my opinion. Backups. Make sure your backups are working. Take backups, ensure they're working. Make sure your restore points, make sure your restores actually function properly too. Do annual or semi-annual or quarterly.
Yeah, and just to stop you there, that's one of the things that we found with a lot of customers is oftentimes we assume that our backups are working just because we get that email notification saying that, hey, they were successful. When we go and try to restore the files, guess what? They're not there. That's a problem. We need to be doing more proactive reviews of our backups and restores.
Right. And then log aggregation correlation. Make sure you're actually looking at your logs. At least you'll be able to see something, either A, it's happening, or it has happened. That way you get to it in a snap of a finger.
Yeah. So users, unfortunately, users are the weakest link in your cybersecurity footprint here. We were at a conference just a couple weeks ago, and it was noted that actually the C-level executives were probably the biggest offenders. So that's a little scary, and if there's any C-level out there, I apologize, but you're just as likely to get nailed as anyone else. So what do we say to that? Let's educate and let's re-educate. We need to start breaking the habits that we've developed over the years of things that, it's never going to happen to me, never going to happen to me. Well, guess what? It's going to happen to you. So let's put things in place. Let's start utilizing multi-factor authentication, RSA tokens, common access cards. And Mike, I think you have one through the government.
Yep, so common access card, basically I need 3 different things to be able to access a government system. One, I need a computer with my username. I need a card with this little chip on it. The computer's gonna have a reader in the keyboard if it's a workstation, or on the actual laptop. If you've had Dells before, you'll probably see a little slot on the side. It actually is a card reader. So I have to have the PIN associated with this card, I have to have this card, and then I have to be able to have my network credentials to be able to gain any access. So 3 points.
So finally here, I'm sorry, there's 2 things. Remove admin rights. If you don't need admin rights, you shouldn't have them. If you do need admin rights, you should be creating a secondary account in which you log into the machines for the purpose of doing some administrative work at that time and then logging out and using your regular account. That's just another attack vector, and if you give the rights to the wrong accounts, bad things happen. And finally, password management. How many of you out here know of people who have an Excel spreadsheet loaded with passwords? A fair amount of hands are going up. That's got to stop. Make them go away. Even if they're yours, find a password management solution. Get those passwords in an encrypted database so that if that file is taken, they can't get the information from it. Not without that master key, and you're the holder of that master key.
So cyber breach readiness, it's, you got to think about it. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, because in reality, a lot of businesses out there, especially small, like Sean had talked about, you are the target because you don't have the resources a larger company would have. 3M, they've got an entire cyber security team associated with that company, and they're still getting breached. Now imagine a smaller company that doesn't have nearly the resources, that you're going to become the target. You're the easy target. So what do? Well, you create a response team. This is somebody inside the organization that's going to deal with the incident as it occurs and following that. Establishing vendor relationships. So an example would be someone to do forensics. You don't want to deal with negotiating how much you're going to pay or anything like that when that's happened. You want to get that taken care of prior, because you're not going to have that ability of negotiating following an event. Create a response plan, and this can't be just in a generic plan. This needs to be associated with a single individual event, like encryption of your file share, something along that lines. Now, you're not going to be able to account for every single thing that could possibly happen, but the more prepared you are, the easier it might be on you. So develop intrusion analysis and auditing programs. You need to be doing, again, you need to be looking at all this information. If you can catch it immediately or catch it immediately following, it's only better for you. And then preserve the data. If you're going to go after if there's going to be any sort of criminal action, any tampering of that data or suspected tampering of that data, it's not going to be valid in court. You need to take whatever data you have, you need to make a copy and lock it away. Don't touch it. Simple as that. And then obviously test, retest it. A lot of people, they don't seem to like these audits. They don't seem to like the vulnerability assessments. Man, you should be embracing that. They're telling you exactly what's going wrong in the company. It's not like a kick in the teeth to you. It's just to help you. It's a training. It's a learning experience, and you just got to embrace it and just make whatever changes.
Yeah, and you see in larger organizations, you actually have a security team and then an infrastructure team, and oftentimes what we see is they sort of battle a little bit, and what they need to realize, or what we need to realize, is that, hey, we're all in this together. There's a reason you're telling me that I have all these patches that are missing, or, hey, there's a reason I can't get those patches. You need to work together and talk together to figure out how we can overcome those things. We also have some additional logos up here from government organizations, and these are organizations that are here to help you. And InfraGuard actually is a user group that the FBI sponsors, and it's available to anyone here who can get screened by the FBI. I'm a member, Mike's a member, and essentially you come together with like organizations and discuss the current cyber threat landscape and trends and things that are working for them. So that's a great organization. I encourage all of you to sign up for it. Again, FBI, Department of Homeland Security, and the Secret Service. A lot of these things are financial transactions, and the Secret Service, that's one of their main things. So the other thing to know is if you are breached, notify the authorities immediately. The sooner you act, the sooner the better chance they're going to have in order to help you. The FBI, in some cases, with some other government entities, are able to put a stop to some financial transactions at this time that are starting to go overseas and across other countries. They're putting agreements in place with these countries to say, hey, hold up, don't let this transaction go through, it's fraudulent. So time is of the essence.
So here's just kind of a little bit of an example of a hacking event. So a scenario would be just I send off an email with a Word document saying, hey, free tickets to the Wild game. And it's got the whole awesome enable macros on there, which, it's indefinite. Someone's going to do it. But so here, I'm in what's called Kali Linux. So what I'm using here is called it's Metasploit. And actually, it's free, which is kind of scary. And it actually is highly competitive to all the other programs out there that people use for vulnerability assessments that actually pay for them. It's still top-notch. It involves a lot of different other programs. It's just basically a framework. I can pull a lot of different programs into it. So here what I'm doing is I'm setting the actual system to look for this other victim to be communicating with me. So I set it to actually sniff out for that.
Yeah, which you've already implanted once, so we've already had, we're assuming that we phished someone clicked on that link in an email, and now he's taken them over.
Yep. So now I have a connection to the system. I'm getting the system authority, basically, which, you know, at this point, I can do whatever I want. So now I'm going in. I'm actually going to create a command line, and it's going to be the same exact thing that you'd see on your own system if you were to open up command line. And now I'm just going to jump in there. I'm going to go ahead and create a local admin on the account. And also, I can actually look at all the different users, and if I find an actual, like a local administrator, I could probably assume that you had local administrators, like just called administrator. I can then assume that you probably have had that on all your other systems, so that actually is beneficial for me. There was my whoopsie moment. Oh, still in command line. So now what I'm doing here is I'm actually pulling the hash files for all the different users on this system.
And those hash files are for the passwords, right?
Correct. So bam, I got them all right there. I got administrator, guest, home group, and what I'm doing is I'm copying the NTLM hash files. There's actually a couple of them in there. So now I'm opening up another window. I'm going to open up what's called Rainbow Crack. And Rainbow Crack is meant specifically to crack these hashes. Prior to this, I already created what's called a rainbow table. It's just a simple one. Normal one I figure would take me 11 days. It's like 600 gigabytes. And then right there, Monday.
That's a pretty easy password, so let's hope that Monday isn't a lot of passwords here, because that was pretty quick.
And that didn't take me very long. In fact, the whole administrator, all that stuff, I mean, if I was really wanting to just get in there and do my thing, it'd be a lot quicker. And then there I just clear out the event log. So all the traces that what I did is pretty much gone.
Didn't even know he was
Unless you want to
there.
do some hardcore forensics. But.
Yep. So finally, let's talk for a minute briefly about future threat landscape. We know the number of attacks will continue to increase. They're not going away. The tactics, targets, and methods are evolving all the time. They're getting harder to prevent. We see self-driving cars here. I believe it was last week or the week before it was noted that there was a Chinese research firm that was able to hack the brakes on a Tesla while it was moving and disable them. That's kind of scary. The Internet of Things or medical devices, pacemakers, things of that nature, you know, it's got wireless connectivity. They have to pull data from it. There's the ability to exploit those. Critical infrastructure, dams, they're going to continue to be a target. They're going to become bigger targets. This airliner is actually, I don't know if any of you recall this, but a couple of years ago, that's an actual claim. And I don't know if it's true or not. I haven't seen too much since then on this, but if it is true, think about that. That is scary. And then finally, keep calm. It's just a nuclear explosion. Well, yeah, that's scary. The reality is that we're facing a completely different landscape on the battlefield now. It's going to be less actual people going out and fighting, you know, with guns and whatnot. It's now going to be a silent war waged in the background where the media doesn't have access to take pictures and video and put them online so everyone can see. It's happening now. And there's another term that I learned yesterday that you were mentioning that the Department of Defense or the military has come up with.
Yeah, they're obviously embracing this whole concept that the war of the future isn't necessarily going to be on the battlefield. It's going to be in the cyber environment. So they came up with the fancy term of a cyber bomb instead of, you know, like a regular bomb. I mean, so they understand what's happening in the future, that it's, you know, you're going to be shutting things down, and then past that point, whatever. But I mean, the initial warfare is all going to be in the cyber environment.
So I know we're often asked, what additional resources can we have or can we look at? Well, here's a whole bunch of them that are there for you. Krebs on Security, great blogger. You've got the US CERT, who I bet a lot of you are already subscribing to their feeds. Google any one of these. They're great resources. You can learn a ton of information. You usually get the latest breaking events that are out there in the cyber world. You learn a lot. I've learned a lot. I know that we talk quite a bit about, hey, this or that, and oh my gosh, it's scary. But, well, thank you very much, everyone, and I hope you got some good information out of this.